Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
All right, let's go. Just making sure everything's straight. AirPods. All right, go ahead and get started. In 3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today. And today, like I said in our last episode, we're talking about strictly hoops from here on out. And, right now we're a little over the halfway point of the 2023-2024 NBA season. Haven't spent a lot of time talking about it, but this is a time where we're going to start talking about it a little more. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the NBA's contenders and pretenders as we start to gear up and get into the playoffs. We'll also talk about the NBA MVP race. Who do we have as the front runner right now? And we'll also talk about the award in general. We'll talk about the Milwaukee Bucks as well, their struggles since hiring their new head coach, Doc Rivers. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and close out with our overall biggest surprises and biggest disappointments on the season so far. But of course, as always, before we jump into all of that, temperature check. How's everybody doing?
I mean, it feels good to get back into hoops, man. It's been a minute, and so we've been tapped into football. NFL's kind of controlled us for a while, so it's good to get back to basketball, man.
Oh yeah, man. Second half of the season, he tends to turn up, especially in the Western Conference, man. So expect some good basketball, expect some good playoff hoops, and hopefully we get a good final. So I'm ready to talk some basketball.
It's amazing to be free from the shackles of the NFL season, to finally get back into the NBA scene. And I know that we missed a lot, but at the end of the day, there's always a lot that we could talk about, a lot that we can cover, and I'm excited to get to all of that. But aside from all that, I say we go ahead and jump right into it. So we're going to be talking about the NBA's contenders and pretenders. I have a list of teams that I'll be listing out, and you guys will just go ahead and give me an answer on whether or not you guys believe they're contenders or pretenders, and go ahead and give me a reason as to why you believe such and such. And the first team on my list, I have the New York Knicks.
Pretender.
Are we saying they're pretenders, or do we expect them to make the finals?
Let me elaborate on this a little bit. In order for this team to be a contender, you have to see them making the NBA Finals.
I never expected the Knicks to make the finals before, so I wouldn't. That is in the pretender category, but I definitely think they're gonna make some noise in the playoffs, though. I definitely.
So you think the way this Knicks team is rolling right now, they're not good enough to make the NBA Finals?
Are they a better team than Boston?
They don't have to be a better team than Boston. Can the New York Knicks
that's
with the way
like
they're
the only reason why
right now,
I just can't see any other team. That's why I just like if you practically name every other Eastern team, in my mind, I'm already thinking, well, I matched them up with Boston, and I'm taking Boston over everybody. I just can't see anybody beating Boston this year.
Because I can see them beating. I can see them beating the Bucks. I can see them beating Cleveland. I can see them beating Philly. He's gonna be
like my two teams outside of Boston,
Boston?
would be the Cavs and Knicks. Outside of those two teams, it would just be the Cavs and the Knicks. Those are the two teams that I could bet on would be the second and third best teams. Everybody else, Milwaukee, I mean, they've these last 3 games, they've looked a lot better. So, I mean, depends on how Dame finishes out this season. But even then, I don't have that much hope for the Bucks. I mean, the Pacers, even after the Siakam trade, they've just kind of been 9-9. Now, of course, that's Halliburton restriction and the team coming back from injury and the All-Star break. But I mean, I don't really have any hope for any other of these teams. And the Sixers obviously lost Embiid. I mean, we've been good since the All-Star break, but even then, like, I'm not gonna rely on a Fugazi run to beat Boston. Like, 2 times, it's not gonna happen back-to-back seasons. That's just crazy. So it's just Boston that I think owns everybody.
But that's the thing, though. The New York Knicks are one of the few teams that were very, very active at the trade deadline, starting off the new year, acquiring OG Anunoby, getting guys like RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly off this roster. Then they made another move, acquiring Bojan Bogdanovic from the Detroit Pistons. So, and they also added Precious Achiuwa in that Raptors trade in acquiring OG. And during the month of January, they had a nice stretch where they only lost 2 games. And, now what they sit at if I can confirm, let me see where they sit right now in the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're a 4th seed, but the race is very close, only a couple games out from that 2nd seed. Why can't you see them beating Boston? Because they made a move for OG in order to, try to contain the Boston Celtics wings players, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
They have no answer.
Boston, I think Boston defensively is a much better team. I think, when it comes to end game moments and who can push the shove and make a stop, I think Boston has a better chance of making that happen against the Knicks than the Knicks defensively. Although, getting OG back, getting, Randall back, getting Mitchell Robinson back from injury might change a little bit. I don't know. I just think that Boston, they just been shafted the last couple of years. I feel like, Porzingis is the missing piece. They pick up Drew Holiday, you plug that in. It's just those 2 pieces for me fit well with having Tatum and having Jaylen Brown. And then, from Derek White this year, he took a step forward. He took that Marcus Smart role, and he's playing phenomenal. I just think right now the Boston, the way they mesh and the way they're hooping, it's tough to get one up on them.
That's fair. So pretty much the next 2 teams that I had on my list were the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Philadelphia 76ers. But based on your you guys' first initial answer, I'm assuming the answer is still going to be the same. You guys can't see those 2 teams.
I think Cavs going to be a first-round exit, to be honest.
That's a little bit extreme.
They're sitting at the 3rd seed.
They're the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, 38-19, and they were just as good as the New York Knicks in the month of January.
Yeah, there's no way they're first round exit.
It depends on who they face the first round.
I really think that they can beat every other team besides Boston. They match up the players. They can beat every other team.
If they see Knicks first round, I don't see that happening.
They can. No, they're equipped now to play.
Knicks healthy. I think it'd be 4-1 again.
I'm taking the Knicks. I took the Knicks last year. I'll still take the Knicks again.
4-1 is crazy.
I think it'd be 4-1.
4-1 is insane.
I think Knicks have a better roster. Knicks have a better roster. I think Knicks have a better roster than they did last year compared to the Cavs. And Darius Garland been playing.
So do the Cavs. The Cavs have a way better. The Cavs have a way better roster now. Yeah, they do.
A little bit,
Okoro's about 1,000 times. Okoro's better than he was last year. They have Strus now, who's actually small forward.
I don't know.
Nah, come on, bro. They got Strus. They got Sam Merrill. They got
OG Princess. They hooping right now. They got a couple pieces right now to that roster.
The Cavs needed some shooting, and that's what they went out and got.
Hey, when push comes to shove, right? When it comes to that playoff basketball, right? I just know those 2 soft big men on Cavs front. Those 2 soft 7-footers.
Nah, bro, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different this time.
Physical wise, they're gonna get abused again. They got standing sticks getting hit.
They got spacing now. They got spacing now, man.
Jerry Allen Mobley to me, playoff time comes is food, barbecue chicken.
Nah, bro, they're locked in. They're locked in this season. The Cavs got some.
I wouldn't. Bro. Yeah, I wouldn't say they're the same team as last year. I think this Cavs team is a lot different in comparison to what they were last year, especially during the month of January when they went on that same run the Knicks did. a lot of their key players were out. Garland was out, Mobley was out, and so it was pretty much Donovan Mitchell putting the team on his back to get them to the position that they are at right now, at the 2 seed. And so it'll be an interesting series, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, no matter who they match up with. But if they had to play the New York Knicks, I would probably take the Knicks in like 6 or 7 games. But that's an evenly matched series for sure, on both sides. It's not one-sided how it was last year. I think both teams did get better in the offseason at the trade deadline. And so, I guess, it's just like we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But let's go ahead and move on to a couple of teams that I have from the Western Conference. Number one being Abdi's second favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I'll be honest. You think they're making the finals?
I actually think in the West, I think they have, bro. Like I said this before, right?
Be honest. No.
Number 3 on that team. If number 3 on that team doesn't play, if they cut his minutes in half, but this team can go straight to the finals, bro. They have a chance. If number 3 does not play, man, that's Josh Giddey. If they cut his minutes down and they realize, yo, this guy's a walking liability, let's cut his minutes in half. But this team really can go with anybody, because the only issue that this team really faces outside of Josh Giddey is that rebounding at matchup. That's the area, of course, the size issue. But when you look at it, when it comes to scoring, when it comes to defense, and when it comes to shooting, this team has it all. I mean, they have the scoring with Shea and J-Dub. They have the spacing with Chet and J-Dub and Lou Dort and all these other guys. They have a bunch of players on this roster that can contribute outside of Josh Giddey. The issue is Josh Giddey and that rebounding matchup. But when you look at it, there's only really 2 teams that can take advantage of that in the West. It's the Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers, yes, but depending on if the Lakers can get out the play-in. That's just really what it comes down to. And if they see the Lakers in the first place.
We most definitely get out the play-in. Don't get it stuck down there.
I'm just saying, if OKC matches up with the Lakers, that's just depending on what goes on in the last 4 spots they play in. But outside of that, you have the Nuggets, and then the Lakers. But honestly, the Timberwolves, the Timberwolves, and then the OKC have been a close matchup all season long. Like I think they've split the season series at this point. Both teams have went back and forth with each other. So because that's one of the few teams that can take advantage of a Rudy Gobert defense, because Chet can stretch out. And then when you realize, Josh Giddey plays, then it's a whole different story. But I really think this team has the makings of a team that could go on a run in the playoffs. It's just depending on if number 3 plays basketball for this team. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
We need to stop addressing players based on the number that they have on the back of their jersey. Like, if you're like that, we can address you as such. But like, now that it's gone so far that we're not even calling Josh Giddey out by his name. Like, come on, let's
hate saying his name
from here on out, man. I get it. He's a liability for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. I agree with you 100%. But I have one question for you. A lot of talk has been going on as of late about the Oklahoma City Thunder and them being a year away because they don't necessarily have the star power to be able to compete in the Western Conference. And they've also talked about experience. What do you say to the people that are shouting that the Oklahoma City Thunder are too inexperienced to go on a deep playoff run?
Is it fair to call them the Kings of last year? I know I've been tweeting about this a lot, saying that they're not the same as the Kings as last year and everything.
Absolutely, bro. That shit not right, bro.
I'm not saying as game wise or like that, but experience wise, it kind of looks the same, to be honest.
I will say experience is a valuable part of playoff basketball. Yeah, I'm there with you. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we here. Continue.
All right, back live again.
Like I was saying, like the whole comparison about the Kings thing is, I get playoff experiences. Like, yes, I think that is something that's valuable because at the end of the day, when you look at these teams that end up winning, they have some degree of playoff experience. So, the Nuggets with Jokic and Jamal Murray, they've been to the playoffs like 3 times at most. And then you look at the Warriors 2022, we don't even have to talk about the amount of experience they had. Giannis has been to the playoffs numerous times with Chris Middleton. So I get it that getting to the playoffs, there's some level of experience that's needed. But, if we're talking in the sense of making a deep playoff run, I think this team has the minerals to make a deep playoff run. Grizzlies 2022, both teams that don't have a ton of experience, but they were trying to make noise. This team's about 1,000 times better than that Kings team on defense. And when you look at it between the two teams, who had the better player? I mean, like, no disrespect, De'Aaron Fox is a great player, but he's an MVP candidate at this point. And then you go back to that 2022 Grizzlies team. Well, Ja Morant was great, and that team played amazing defense. And their offense was pretty decent, but their half-court scoring was dog shit. Like, that's just, they relied more on offensive rebounding. They didn't really have a ton of half-court scores. And so, this OKC team, when you look at it, the half-court scoring is there with a guy like Shea, a guy that gets to the free throw line. He does it from the mid-range. And then you look at J-Dub, the amount of contribution that he has in the Chet as a floor spacer, and they play great defense. Playoff experience might hold back this team, but I really think that when you look at, the structure and how it looks, I mean, this team can compete with any one of those teams on a nightly basis. So if you put them in a series, I'm confident for them to go up against anybody besides maybe Denver. I mean, that size is just too annoying to deal with. So
I don't know, man. If they see a team like Dallas, Suns, maybe
that's
Clippers,
what I'm talking about. Like, if they see a team like Dallas and the Suns, I'm confident about OKC beating those teams.
I don't know about that.
I keep telling you, if they see the Lakers, that's annoying.
Like, we gonna see 3 on D Book. Like, that's the type of thing. Like, we gonna see 3 on D Book, but it's gonna be disgusting.
You don't need that, bro. You don't need that.
Number 3 gonna be on D Book. Yeah, D Book gonna have
bro,
a field.
He's not, bro. I'm telling you, but something tells me, bro, his minutes are gonna get cut in half, bro. I just feel like he's gonna get 14 minutes come playoff time. Like this,
I don't think so. I
mean, that's how playoff basketball always is, though. The rotations get shortened.
To cut a starter's minute. If he was
minutes
coming off the bench, it makes it realistic. Like, okay, yeah, we'll shorten his minutes off the bench because it's playoff time. We're gonna give our starters more minutes. He's a starter.
I mean,
his minutes are getting cut right now.
His
minutes are getting cut right now. So, I mean, I think the Oklahoma City Thunder coach is a lot smarter than
Gordon Hayward. I think once he gets into the rhythm, he's gonna pick up a lot more playing time for the team. So.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much help Gordon Hayward is to this team. I think
I'd be saying, bro, anything's better than 3, right?
Yeah, that's facts. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of guys on this team better than him, and they're actually good players as well. So
I don't know, man. I just think
I really think you
seeing KD and Book, and then seeing Kyrie and Luka. I just think it's too much for Shea. Shea, he's gonna get his for sure. He's gonna get his. He's gonna eat. But can the supporting?
I think bro, like, if they see the Suns, bro, like, I'm confident this team can go band for band with anybody but Denver. Like, that's just I really think when you look at it scoring wise, I really think that, especially like those teams with bigs like Nurkic and you look at the Warriors and their lack of rim protection, and you look at these other teams, I really think that they can just compete with any one of them. Of course, going up against Luka in the playoffs isn't an easy feat, but at the same time, this team has shown all season long, like, even in crunch time, they really are like that. So I'm confident about any other team that isn't like it doesn't have a huge size advantage. When you look at these Lakers and Denver, it's a bit of a problem, but that's a different topic.
I'll go ahead and say, for me, it's Pretenders. I just feel like they're just 1 year removed, for making a run like that. I think they got to add a few more pieces to this roster. They got to add a little bit more star power. But this upcoming postseason run that they're about to go on, it will be a good, idea. It'll give them a better idea of what this team needs, to get over that extra hump, because obviously coming into this season, nobody expected the Oklahoma City Thunder to be a top 2 team in the Western Conference. So, they've already exceeded all the expectations set on them. But come playoff time, playoff basketball is a little bit different. When you lack experience, down the stretch, situational basketball, every possession matters, every minute matters, and every second matters. And so, this is no disrespect to this Oklahoma City Thunders team. This Thunders team has been amazing all season. Credit to them. But playoff basketball is just a little bit different, and I'm not too sure if a lot of their guys outside of SGA are able to live up to the expectations and live up to the hype. But aside from the Oklahoma City Thunder, we'll go ahead and move on to the team that's been trailing them for the number 1 seed, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Bro, like, I know I've been harsh on this team all season long, but, like, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like, defensively, they're really like that. like, obviously they have a bit of fourth quarter CTE, and it's been hard to trust Cat in the playoffs. But like, I'm gonna say pretenders. I'm gonna say pretenders just because I don't know how much I can trust their guys outside of Ant. Um, I don't think I don't know how Cat is gonna translate in the playoffs. Maybe he finally has a good playoff run. But when you look at it, Gobert's been playing amazing on defense. This team as a whole, they can play defense. And so you kind of look at playoff basketball, this team can give a team like Denver problems. Like, at the end of the day, like, you may not be able to score that much, but like, if you're able to lock in, I feel like that's a huge part of you making a playoff run. But I just don't trust that scoring enough. Like, I feel like if you want to make a playoff run, you have to have adequate scores. And outside of Ant, I don't know if I can really trust this team like that. Physically they can keep up with any team. Defensively they can keep up with any team. But when it comes to just scoring wise, I just don't see it with this team. Like, when I look at OKC, like, scoring wise, I can trust a guy like J Dub over a guy like Cat, because I've seen J Dub all season long, be a much more adequate scorer in the crunch time versus Cat, who, he gets a lot of these silly mistakes where he's offensive fouls and the turnovers, and it just doesn't look good. And then Rudy Gobert in the playoffs, obviously, he's never going to be a contributor on offense. So I don't know how much offensive burden is going to be on Ant, but I can't see it with this team right now.
I'm gonna say pretenders. I mean, for me, it's just how they go into the playoffs and the way they play in the playoffs. We've seen it the last couple of years how they, choked big leads, blew some games, and the inconsistency of obviously Cat, even Ant too as well. He's having a phenomenal year, but there've been some inconsistencies in his scoring. He be having games where he be, one day he be on and the next day he's 3 for 23, and it just be disgusting. Can you trust Gobert on the offensive side of the ball? Sometimes he does get picked defensively. He's having he might win Defensive Player of the Year again this year, but playoff time comes and certain teams are going to start hunting him. Certain teams, we've seen him hunt them and him in the past. We've seen the Clippers, Kawhi, PG hunt him. We've seen other teams hunt him and go after him. And I just think it's the same thing. I just think, one of the Twin Towers, they gotta go. One of them got to get traded. One of them got to, give some space on the court. Give Ant some help on guard play, some wing play for him to evolve more. And I think it's probably the last year of those two playing together. I feel like Cat and Gobert. I feel like the little experiment with those two. I don't think it's gonna go past this year. After this playoffs, I really believe they might get to the second round depending on who they face, but they might just get knocked out first round.
A team that's the number one seed in the Western Conference with a record of 40-17 should look to blow up what's working for them.
I mean, if they lose first round, what's the point?
I don't like.
What's the point? That record stuff don't mean nothing if you get kicked out first round.
I believe personally that the guy that they should keep is Gobert, because at the end of the day, you kind of already know what you're getting with Gobert. You're gonna have a walking top.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with you. I really believe they should keep Gobert.
You're
and see
have a
what
walking top regardless with Gobert. Like, you're not gonna get that much on offense, but every single season when you come in, okay, I'm gonna have a high level of defense, and that already raises your floor a ton. And then at that point, it's just a matter of, like, I mean, Cat this season, I'm not going to be too harsh. I think for the most part, Cat, I think he's been pretty good this season. He was deserving of that all-star spot. I would have still given it to Gobert just because of his impact on defense this season. But even then, I think Cat has been good. But, this playoff really is a test for Cat. It's really just to see how much value does he add to this team. Because if he doesn't perform again, at this point, you just got to reevaluate. Well, is it worth keeping him moving forward? Should we try something else? Because what we getting with Gobert, and is continually improving every single season, and from there we can see. But it's really the playoffs for Cat. This is do or die for him now.
Is there any team in the Western Conference that can give this Timberwolves team matchup problems? Because as we mentioned, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league right now, or if not the best.
Like I said this, like, you have to have a specific personnel to take advantage of a guy like Gobert. Like, OKC bar Giddey. Like, if Giddey wasn't playing, they give a guy like Gobert issues just because of how spaced the floor is. Other than that, I mean, there's not a ton of teams that can really take advantage of a Gobert anchored defense. You need a ton of spacing and a ton of guys to put in a rotation. Maybe a team like the Suns, just because of how they can attack. But outside of that, I don't think there's a lot of teams that can take advantage. Maybe the Mavs when Maxi Kleba starts for them because he's just been a good spacer for them. But outside of that, I mean, it's tough to take advantage of Rudy Gobert defense. You need to have specific personnel for it.
That's fair. The next team on my list, I have the Dallas Mavericks.
Pretenders. I mean, I get it. I know people, the Luka Doncic fans, they've been having him, as an MVP candidate. He's been playing phenomenal. To me, when it comes to just on a pure play basis, no other added factors, just on how he's played this season, I think he has been the best player in the league this season, just on how he's played. But, when you look at the team winning aspect of things, I mean, I think the addition of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington was great. I think they added a lot of size to this team. And, they need Dante Exum to get back. But ultimately, I don't think this team has enough at the forward spot to kind of compete in the West. But at the same time, they have a guy in Luka Doncic that I feel like if you have him in the playoffs, it's scary because he can really go against anybody. You can feel confident knowing he's going to outplay the opposing star on the other team. So, this team, I don't think it's there yet in terms of they're going to make it to the finals. But, with Luka Doncic and the added pieces they have, and hopefully they need PJ Washington to start hitting his shots. I think defensively he's been great, but on offense, it hasn't been what they were expecting. And from that point on, I think if he's able to get his offense together, they're able to get Dante Exum back. I think moving forward, this team can be very, very dangerous come playoff time. They're a team I wouldn't ideally want to see at all.
I agree with you. I think this team is a sleeper team, man. I believe, the way Luka and Kyrie are playing right now, they're playing phenomenal. Although, they just lost to the Cavs on some crazy stuff against, Max Struss hitting a half-court three and stuff like that. But these last couple of weeks, those two players,
they were on a 7-game winning streak.
Yeah, they've been hooping. So for me, I do like the PJ Washington Gafford addition. So like, Grant Williams wasn't really much helping the team. Offensively, he wasn't really much doing none. Defensively, he wasn't really much doing none. So like these two guys, they bring much more size, much more athleticism than him. They can kind of space the floor. Kind of helps Luka and Kyrie, But at the same time, I mean, if they see the Nuggets, I don't know, man. I just feel like, it goes the same way it applies to the OKC. It's just the size-wise for them. I feel like, up front, the front court, I feel like if they see a team like the Nuggets or the Wolves or maybe even the Lakers, it's going to be tough for them, So for me, Luka, Kyrie, probably the deadliest duo in the league, but we'll see how, they handle the defensive side of the stuff and how they're up, their front court, their bigs and stuff handle the other teams, the big guys, guys like Jokic, Gobert, Towns, Anthony Davis, guys, the Lakers lineup is pretty lengthy. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with them, but I feel like they can be a sneaky team in the playoffs. I feel like they can clip, some of those top teams. I feel like they can go toe to toe with the best teams, but is it enough? Who knows?
And that's my thing, man. I got these guys as pretenders, and I think we need to start having an honest discussion about this Dallas Mavericks team. We need to start having an honest conversation about, this roster construction as a whole. They acquired Kyrie Irving a little over a year ago. We saw how they ended last year. They skipped out on making the play-in tournament because they struggled so bad. They went from a playoff team, a top 6 seed, all the way to the out of the play-in tournament. Come back this year, now they sit with a record of 33-25 at the 8th seed. How good is this team, man? We have to start having an honest conversation about these guys. These guys don't play defense whatsoever. Let's go ahead and throw that out there. They're just like the Phoenix Suns, but with a little less star power. Against teams above 500, they're 15-20. I'm not too confident in this team, man. I understand Luka Doncic is great. I understand Kyrie Irving is great, but in the postseason, you're gonna need a lot of your role players to step up, and you're relying on guys like Tim Hardaway and PJ Washington to help you, win important series. I don't know, man. I'm just not buying it. I can't see it with this team. And, the Kyrie Irving trade was already a head scratcher for me. And with the way they ended last season, we said, all right, let's go ahead and just give it a little bit of time, give it an off season for them to get to know each other a lot more and to build that chemistry between the two guys. And, now we've gone to a little over the halfway point of the NBA season, and they haven't gone up the rankings. They've been around the play-in tournament spots for majority of the season. So that's just really my issue with this team, man. Their lack of a third option, and their wing depth, and then you go ahead and look at the their defensive play as a whole. This team doesn't play defense whatsoever. You have their backcourt duo are defensive liabilities, and so I'm not too sure how they're going to be able to keep up, with a lot of these teams that can play defense. And that's just my issue with this team. So I have these guys as pretenders. Just for that fact, I think in the postseason you have to play a little bit of defense. And I understand you can have all the firepower on offense in the world, but if you can't get an important stop down the stretch, or if you can't get a stretch of stops in certain spots in the game, it's gonna be tough for you to win. And so that's just really my main issue with this Dallas Mavericks team. I just question their ability to have a third option to help those two guys. Because what does a Dallas Mavericks series win look like? Is if they had to win a series, it's pretty much Luka and Kyrie having to go 40 and 30, for majority of the game and for majority of the series, and maybe you have an occasional Tim Hardaway Jr. game where he probably drops 8 threes and gets you 24 or 27 points. Like, I just don't think a lot of that is sustainable, come postseason time. I know you have to have role players down on a championship team, and I just can't trust the role players that the Dallas Mavericks have. That's just really my main issue with this whole thing. But aside from the Dallas Mavericks, I have the Los Angeles Lakers next on my list.
Yeah, pretenders, man. They're in the play-in. Like, let's just be honest here. It's not like this whole play-in. I will say this about the whole play-in tournament is I think it's tricked people into thinking, okay, well, we're in the play-in spot. We can replicate what Miami did last year, or we can replicate what the Lakers did last year, make it all the way to the West. And it's just no. Like, the Lakers outside of Bron and AD just have, D'Lo had stretches of great basketball. But even then, at that point, I don't think this Lakers team is just good enough. Like I was saying about the Lakers, and I mean, I feel like just talent-wise, outside of Bron and AD, you have contributors like Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, but that's just not enough with how this team's been all season long. The shooting isn't great. The contribution outside of these guys in terms of just defensively, their guards they don't have great wings. I mean, like, to have two guys that have been playing at, at worst at top 20 level. AD's been at a top 10 level all season. Bron's been at a top 15, top 20 level all season. And you're still in the playing spot. Just speaks volumes to how, bad this roster is, which is kind of funny considering how we entered the season, kind of gassing up the Lakers. But that's just kind of biased from them making the Western Conference. I just don't see a run where like, oh, we're going to make it out the play-ins and beat this team first round, second, third round. I don't know if that's going to happen again. I just don't see it with how much talented the West is this season. I just can't see it.
I promise
Big
you.
H, what's going on with your Lakers, man?
I promise
we need
you.
to know what's going on.
You make the Western Conference Finals. I ain't tripping. Playoff time coming. I know what Bron do. We gonna show up for show.
We gotta stop using Bron's resume to help your case, man.
Because every year it helps the case. Every year it works. Every year we're in the same situation, and every year it comes out the same. I'm just saying. I don't know. I feel like guys like
what's going to change? What's going to change come postseason time?
First off, Darvin Ham gotta get his hands out of his pockets. Secondly, we gotta get Rui. We gotta get Rui more involved in the game, man. I feel like Rui. I feel like he's not getting the minutes that he deserves. I feel like last year in the playoffs and late season when Bron was injured last year, he stepped up for us a lot. Him and D'Lo, they were hooping. Made that playoff run for us. I just feel like him, not getting consistent minutes, him not being in the rotation a lot. It kind of hinges our offense a little bit. And I feel like guys like Reeves and D'Lo, they thrive off of, having other players, perform like Bron and AD and, having Rui. And, on the defensive side of the end, I feel like we're missing our energizer. We're missing Vanderbilt. We haven't seen him healthy a lot. He came back for a stretch, got hurt again. He's been out. And another guy that we signed this offseason, Gabe Vincent, which hasn't, done much or shown up much and has been on, the injury reserve list for us for a long minute. I don't know why these Miami Heat players tend to do this to us. First guy was, I already forgot his name. What was his name again? Kendrick Nunn. There we go. First guy, he did us dirty. Second guy, that was Gabe Vincent. I haven't seen this guy. He went to the finals last year. He was hooping out of his
dead, bro. He's not real.
He was hooping
he's
out
not
of his
he's not real no more, man.
Player anymore, bro.
The minute he touches Lakers jersey, it's just I'm not here to perform. I'm not here to play. So we're missing that. I feel like him, Vanderbilt, and guys like Rui, Austin, Rui, Reeves, D'Lo. I feel like those guys got to perform and step up in the playoffs if and when they are healthy. And AD is another guy. You know me, I always mention AD. Offensively, I needed every game consistent. Like he got to be 28, 29, 30. It can't be Braun leading the way 24/7. You know, Braun, we're gonna get some games from Braun, but for us, AD, it's time for him to finally just, hey, I gotta get that 30 ball per game in the playoffs. I gotta, hoop. I gotta play my back to the basket. I gotta be physical. He tends to shy away from that. We've seen that in recent playoffs. We've seen that a lot the last couple of years. So AD, when are you gonna take the keys from LeBron, man? LeBron's 40-year-old, still trying to lead this team. When is it that you're gonna take the keys off him and finally show up for us in the playoffs and lead the way for us? So
I'm very glad you clarified that you're talking about the postseason, because if we're talking about who's been better between the two in the regular season,
regular season AD gonna do his thing, but postseason wise, just the inconsistency. One game 16, and then the next game he gonna have 34, and the next game is 13 points, shooting nasty splits, and it's just like, come on, every game we need you to lead that forefront like you're doing in the season. And if we see that in the postseason, finally can say, hey, it's his team. Might lead us to the finals. Who knows? So we got to wait on that. But guys like Vanderbilt, guys like Gabe Vincent, we need them to get healthy. I feel like Vanderbilt, even in that stretch of time when he was healthy, he was contributing. He was playing pretty good. Defensively, he's a solid player, and offensively, he knows when to cut right, and he knows to find those spaces. Although he's a horrible shooter, but he can fit the floor. So guys like that, Gabe Vincent, I want to see back healthy. Let's see how he does, and if he comes back to playoff time. If he can get his 3-point percentage like it was last year in the playoffs, very, very glad. And D'Lone Reeves, but we know what we need from them, so we'll see. And like I said, we come out the play-ins, I'm not worried. OKC, Wolves, they both getting tapped. 4-2, 4, especially OKC. I think we tap them 4-1. I ain't gonna lie.
That's not happening.
We tap them. I think we tap them.
That's not happening.
I promise. I think we tap them.
That's not.
Hey, we're gonna take care of the little brothers. You know what I'm saying? The little kids. They're growing up. It's the little JV team.
I really
they get a little juice on it. They get a little juice.
First off,
half the year off. Playoff time come, we gonna take care of them.
Wolves. I really think if you see the Wolves, they beat you like that. Because think about it. You don't really have a size advantage on the Wolves. Like they're the one.
Cat gonna take care of it for us.
Hey, but they're
he gonna hand it on a silver platter to us.
When you think about it, like what advantage do the Lakers really have other than you can say they have more star power, but then they can keep up size wise and their defense is amazing. So it's just like it's not like the Lakers have a huge advantage.
Wolves would be a tougher matchup than OKC. I'll be honest. Size wise, they're right there with Naz Reid, Gobert, Towns. Anthony Edwards is a new player. McDaniels, they'll be a tougher match with OKC, but OKC though, JV kids.
Nah, bro, don't sleep, man. Don't sleep.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Laker fans, you talk about, what they're missing, what they're lacking due to injuries. You talk about Vando, and you bring Vando back in the fold. Great defender, but on offense, when he's out there on the floor offensively, the play gets a little bit stagnant. The ball teams sag off him.
You gotta sell something to get some back. You feel me? Certain points in the game, you gotta put him in. You gotta sell something to get some back. He's gonna be important for some plays he's not. Same as D'Lone Reeves. Mr. Ham can get his hand out of his pocket and figure it out. We'll see.
I don't think that guy's coaching this team anymore, man. I think that's LeBron's team. He's the one that's calling all the shots. that guy's just the label. He has the label of the tag of the head coaching position for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Pockets, we went down 20 the other day against the Suns in the first quarter. He did not want to call a timeout. From the point it was a 2-point game to a 20-point game. His hands were always in his pockets. He did not move. I'm like, bro, just call one timeout. Just settle it down. Get back into the game. But I don't know.
I mean,
I just feel like playoff time comes. I think we turn it up. I just felt like, with the duo of LeBron and AD, if they can perform together, if they can hoop together, it's shit. 1-2, it's a tough duo.
That's what happens when you have LeBron James on the team, man. You don't necessarily have to worry too much about where you're at in the seeding. And at the end of the day, as long as he has an opportunity to make the postseason now with this play-in tournament, or he has a spot in the top 8, in the top 6, you always have a shot. And so, I have these guys making the NBA finals, so I really need them to turn it around so I don't look like an idiot.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's
just that Serbian and that Serbian in that Denver uniform, man.
Yeah, Nuggets give y'all problems. You
I-
better
like,
hope.
Him and Jamal Murray, when they see us, bro, it's just like, hey, dress up, steak dinner tonight. We eating good, you know. They come out against us. They just, I don't know. We gotta find something. We gotta find something against them.
You better hope one of those teams, in the Clippers or the Suns, find a way to knock them out or exhaust them. Because if you guys see them, it's wraps.
It's gonna be tough against them.
It's gonna be tough, man. But yeah, I mean, for right now, they're looking like pretenders. But like I said, they're my championship pick, so I gotta see it through. Hopefully, with the LeBron James tag, you just throw that out there. The Lakers have LeBron James, everything's gonna be all right. So, but with that being said, that wraps up our NBA's contenders and pretenders list. And let's go ahead and talk about this MVP race. As we're a little over halfway through the NBA season, the MVP race has, gone up and down. To start off the year, leading all the way up until late January, the front runner for this award was Joel Embiid until he went down with an injury, and he'll be coming back in late March, early April. And now leading the race, you have Nikola Jokic once again, but right behind him, you also have SGA. And so, who do you guys currently have as your guys' front runner for this award?
I said, it's kind of crazy because it's hard to keep up with this Serbian, bro. Because every game is like a 20, 15, and 15 stat line, but
he has 96 field goal percentage. It's just crazy.
Every game, fake ass numbers. But my MVP for this season so far is Shea, just because. I mean, when you look at it, where was this team even supposed to be at? I think everybody was like, oh, obviously they got Chet Holmgren back. Shea's going to be better the next season, and J-Dub's going to take a leap.
That shouldn't take away from Jokic's MVP.
It won't, but I'm just making his case. I'm just saying, where this team was or where this team was projected to be. Nobody had this team finishing as a top 4 seed at all. That's absolutely not. Some people had them finishing as a top 6 seed, but most people would be like, okay, they're probably going to be a top 8 seed, compared to where they were last season. They'll probably be a top 8 seed because the West got better and they're still a young team. Mm-hmm. And then now you look at and they're tied for the number 1 seed, going right next to the Timberwolves. And then you look at his numbers wise. I mean, the guy literally is just Mr. Consistency. Every single game he's just going to walk out with 31 points. There hasn't been a game this season where you're thinking, okay, this guy's not going to score 31. I mean, multiple games this season, and some of those games where he hasn't scored 30, it's because they've already blown out a team in 25 minutes, and he's already played 20-something minutes, and that's it. I mean, when you look at his case from a stats point of view, I mean, the guy's ultra efficient. I mean, almost 50, 40, 90 splits. That's just how great he's been playing. And then you look at it on the defensive end, I mean, he's far and away the steals leader, so he's running away with that. And then you look at the narrative, the fact that they're an overperforming team, they're a top 4 seed. I just think when you look at all those things together, he has a strong case to be the MVP. Of course, you look at Luka. I think Luka on a pure play basis, he's been the best player in the league. And then when you look at Jokic, I mean, the combination of winning and the impact on offense that he has, he's been crazy too. But I just think the Shea with the expectations and how good he's played himself, I think he has a strong case for it.
For me, I think, I can't put nothing past the Serbian. I feel like him, what he brings to the table, the value that he brings to the table. I feel like you put him on any team, he's gonna have that team as a top 3, top 4 team. I really believe that. I feel like you put Jokic on any team, he will have that team top 3 best team in the league. It's just what he brings on the offensive side of the ball. He's the brain to that team. Like, you got the center of the brain, and it's just clicking with everybody. You take him out, it's pretty tough. You put him back in, everybody's at 100%. The way the Nuggets are clicking is crazy. To me, it's crazy. Offensively, they're playing phenomenal. Defensively, they're playing phenomenal. And I feel like playoff time comes, you put them against anybody in a 7-game series, we know who's going to prevail. It's going to be the reason, because you can't stop Jokic. And clutch moments, big moments, whatever you want to say, Jokic has that ball in his right hand. We've seen it last year in the playoffs. He showed up multiple games against the Wolves, against the Suns, and even what he did against the Lakers every single game. Big shots after big shots. I just feel like what he has cemented so far, what he has done this year too, I just feel like, nobody else but Embiid, barring his injury, was competing with him MVP. Although Shea's right there, but I just feel like Jokic, what he brings to the table is different. Any given night, it could be him having 15 points, but he's going to end up with 17 assists and 20 rebounds. And it's always big plays that he's making on the court for me. So, for me, Jokic is 1. I got Shea right there, right after him, probably at 2. And then you got Luka and Giannis probably 3 and 4. But other than that, nah, I just can't put it past the Serbian.
The thing is for me, I really just don't have a front runner for this award because I feel like the two guys that are most deserving of this award are 1 and 2. And it's not even 1 and 2, it's more like 1A and 1B between Jokic and SGA. Like you guys have mentioned, both guys have a very, very strong case as to why they deserve this award. And so everybody else that comes after that, I don't think their case is as strong as Jokic or SGA. I want to kind of pivot into another conversation that's been all over social media as of late in regards to Jason Tatum's case for this MVP award being on the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. Draymond Green talked about it on his podcast, saying that, they're starting to move the goalpost on JT, and, JT's MVP case has kind of, hurt, him losing the finals hurt his opportunity or hurt his chances at winning the MVP award. So I want to go ahead and get you guys' thoughts on that.
I don't believe that. I believe that's cap. Giannis, let me see Giannis lost the finals, and he's still always in contention, top 2, top 3 MVP category. Not lose the finals, but lose conference finals and hasn't been to the back to the finals.
I mean, do you guys think that JT should be getting more love for this NBA MVP?
I don't think he's top 5. I don't think he's top 5 best player in the league.
Like when you look at it, the MVP like from like a performance standpoint, they've always been the top 2 player in the league that season. Every single season. I mean, you look at it last season. Embiid was a top 2 performing player that season. You look at the season before, Jokic was. You look at the season before, again, same thing. Giannis, the same thing. 2019, again, Giannis was the same thing. You look at 18, Harden was a top 2 player.
It's dominating performance too. It's like when they win MVP, it's like
have to be a top 2 performing level player to win MVP. That's just a reality. You look at it. He hasn't been better than Shea. He hasn't been better than Jokic. He hasn't been better than Giannis. He wasn't better than
Luka.
Better than Luka, and he was not better than Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell, especially the last 2 months, was absolutely phenomenal when everybody got injured.
I'm gonna throw Kawhi in there too.
Kawhi for stretch, like the thing is, what hurts Kawhi?
It kind of slowed down now.
The beginning, Kawhi was
again, this got cut off.
That January and December stretch for Kawhi Leonard, I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal himself. So it's just like, I feel like it's no goalposts are being moved. Like nothing's being moved. You have to be a top 2 performing level player to get an MVP. That's
what's his stats right now? He's averaging what, 25, 26?
27.
He's averaging like 27.
See,
it's like the people that try to argue Booker was MVP.
When you got 2 other guys on your roster averaging 20, and like Jaylen Brown's averaging what, 23,
something like that.
See, and then Derek White's at 16, and Holiday's at 15.
I'd understand his case if he was a top 2 level performer.
Yeah,
but he's not. So it's just he's really not. Like he'll probably make first team All NBA. Sure, I don't mind that.
I don't know if he will.
He probably will. I'm not gonna lie. Especially ever since Embiid got hurt, that he's probably.
Nah, you still got Jokic center. I'm taking Giannis at.
That's 2. Luka's 3. Shea's 4. He's probably gonna take that last spot.
He's probably getting that 3 spot. I'm not gonna lie.
So it's gonna end up going to him, man. So I do think he's been really good this season. He's been great, but he hasn't been like this is my MVP level great. Like there's been games where the guy can shoot 6 for 15 and they end up winning just because how good the team is. So I don't think from like an impact standpoint, I just don't see it. This whole goalpost being moved for him. It's just not real.
And that's the thing. I agree with that because when you think about the NBA MVP award, it really comes down to how impactful were you for the entire season. And like you just said, there's nights where Jason Tatum can go 9 for 20, but the Boston Celtics are still
9 for 20. He can go 3 for 15, and they can still come up.
And the Boston Celtics are still going to win that game just because of the roster that they have. They have a lot of guys that can cover the ground if JT has an off night. And that's just the issue that I've been having with this whole conversation, is just because when you think about guys that are in the race right now, like SGA and Nikola Jokic, and you can even throw in Donovan Mitchell and Giannis in there, those guys have been extremely impactful for their teams. Donovan Mitchell especially. The Cleveland Cavaliers PR team has just been absolute dog shit, because if their PR team was great, like all these other franchises are, Donovan Mitchell's name would be just as good, and just up there with guys like SGA and with guys like Nikola Jokic. But just because he plays in Cleveland, we're not necessarily hearing about it as much as we are with those two other guys. But we look at Giannis, obviously the Milwaukee Bucks defensively taking a step back, but offensively they have one of the best offenses in the league. And that's credit to Giannis and what he brings to the table. And so it's just like from an impact standpoint, I don't think that they're moving the goalposts. I don't think him losing the NBA finals, is hurting his MVP case, because I think a lot of people have moved past that. A lot of people have moved past the fact that, during that NBA finals run, he was great up until the NBA finals where he didn't necessarily perform up to his standard. But at the end of the day, we're 2 years removed from that conversation, and that L that he took over there has not carried over into last season. Has not carried over into this season. I just feel like, if Jason Tatum was playing like a top 5 player in the NBA, everybody would hear about it. But that's just not the case. And so that's really my whole issue with it. I feel like at the end of the day, he can go out to the media all he wants. He can cry all he wants for recognition for the award. But if you're not playing like SGA, if you're not playing like Jokic, if you're not playing like Donovan Mitchell, if you're not playing like Giannis, if you're not playing like Luka, and I'm sorry, bro, you're not good enough to be an NBA MVP. And I know with this whole 65 game thing that they have the stipulation where you have to play a certain amount of games to be in contention for this award. He's probably going to hit that. But at the end of the day, you have to also have to have the numbers to back it up. You have to have the impact to back it up, and you could be the best player on the best team, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're the most impactful. You've been the most impactful player in the league. When they gave it to Russell Westbrook, for the triple doubles and all that stuff, he made history that year. But he was also extremely impactful for his team. Being 1 year removed from losing Kevin Durant, one of the best players in the league, and so, at the end of the day, should he be receiving a little bit more love? Not necessarily. I feel like there's a lot more that he could do, to be in contention for this award. But, for guys like Nikola Jokic, for guys like SGA, those two guys for sure are like 1 and 2, 1A, 1B for me when it comes to this NBA MVP award, because impact matters. And I'm glad that the NBA as a whole, they're seeing what those two guys are doing on a nightly basis, and they're also acknowledging Jason Tatum. But at the same time, they're also acknowledging the fact that he plays on one of the best rosters and one of the best teams in the NBA as a whole. So, that's really how I see it for this NBA MVP race. Like I said, it's a 2-man race between SGA and Jokic, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out, as the season comes to a close in about a month and a half. But aside from all that, let's go ahead and stay on the topic with Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll go ahead and talk about them for a little bit, have an overreaction and not an overreaction statement that I'll get to in a little bit. But, this team in January, the newly hired head coach, Adrian Griffin, gets fired. They go ahead and hire Doc Rivers to replace him. And when they fired Adrian Griffin, they were the 2 seed, with a record with only 11 losses and 30 plus wins. And a lot of people were like, that's kind of like a head scratcher move, because, why would you fire a head coach that's been doing so well for your ball club? But, unfortunately, him and Giannis and Dame didn't necessarily, get on the same page together. And, this is Giannis's franchise at the end of the day. And the Milwaukee Bucks are always going to listen to him over anybody else that plays a role in the Milwaukee Bucks franchise. But for my overreaction and not an overreaction statement, the Milwaukee Bucks are the biggest frauds in the NBA.
Oh, biggest frauds.
Take into account their record since they've acquired Doc Rivers as their head coach, up until as of right now, where they're 5-9 right now, but they were 3-9 coming into the after the All-Star break.
So what, they've won 3 games in a row now since All-Star breakers or whatever it is?
I believe they've won 2. They were 3-7 actually going into the All-Star break since acquiring Doc Rivers.
Okay.
Now they're 5-7.
I mean, yeah, I guess, because I really can't think of anybody else who we'd consider like a fraud. I mean, yeah, I would consider them. For me, about the Milwaukee Bucks, everything is contingent upon whether or not Damian Lillard plays better. Like, there's a crazy stat, like when he scores like a certain amount of points, they have an amazing record. Like, it just really comes down to him playing better. Like, that's the Milwaukee Bucks' game plan. Forget the whole defense thing, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be the greatest defensive team with a lack of wings and point of attack defenders, but they have Giannis and Brooks, so there's going to be a baseline that they'll hit. I do think their ceiling is where they at offensively, and they've been one of the better offensive teams in the league. For them, it's just a matter of can Damian Lillard play better. And I will say for now, yes, they are frauds, just because of who's coaching them and how they've looked all season long. But this team is a team that has a huge amount of upside. If there's a team that could knock off the Celtics, it would be this team. Like if we're just going based on their ceiling of their ability and who they can be, it would be this team. But it really comes down to Damian Lillard's play. I will say they're frauds for now because of Doc Rivers and how they played all season, their lack of defense. But if Damian Lillard plays better, this conversation could change. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I got them as frauds. I think come playoff time, I really believe this team, even with Dame as, picking up Dame this offseason, putting him on the squad with, Giannis, I just believe it's not going to be enough. I feel like, ever since that finals years, just Giannis and the team, regardless of who they had, it can be with Drew Holiday and having Middleton healthy or whatnot, and Brook Lopez healthy or whatnot, or even picking up Dame right now. I think they're going to still come to the same conclusion again and again. I just feel like Giannis is not gonna perform well in end game situations. And for me, Dame hasn't been a playoff performer like that. I feel like in his past against the Rockets a long time ago, maybe against the OKC, other than that series, but like he struggled a bit in the playoffs against the Warriors and guys like the Nuggets and other teams. I feel like he has struggled, but I just don't think they get over that hump. I just think Middleton's old. I just think Brook Lopez is not going to be the playoff performer. Middleton is going to be a big problem for them in the playoffs.
Bro, I'm forgetting Middleton's real, bro. Like that's another guy just forgetting he's on the team, bro. Because he's the guy, bro. Like if he's healthy and he's able to play, and it's just like if these days because he doesn't play. He's a guy that if he plays, he's another huge piece. Like he's a walking 20 points that's adding to your roster. But it's just like, is he gonna play? Like I don't even remember the last time I've watched the game. I'm like, oh shit, Chris Middleton's playing. So it's just like, his injuries just hurting this team as well.
Yeah, for me it's I don't know. For me, it's just like it's gonna be tough for them in the playoffs if they face a team like Boston, face a team like Miami. I feel like those two teams, even if they face a team like the Knicks, I feel like the Knicks could take them out as well. I just feel like the physicality level. I feel like defensively they're gonna struggle a lot. Just I don't know. I just don't think Dame was a solution for them. I just don't think Doc Rivers is another one of those coaches. I just don't think he can coach them to victory. I mean, we've seen it since the firing of Adrian Griffin. They haven't been doing so well. Maybe these last couple games they've been picking up some heat, but who have they been playing? They played the Hornets today. They played the Pistons the other day. It's been some chump change for them. They've been seeing some chump change, but when it comes to the competition, I don't know. If they see the Pacers in the first round, that's going to be a fun series too.
My whole issue with this Milwaukee Bucks team is it's not even about Doc Rivers. Whoever they brought in a head coach would face the same struggles that Doc Rivers is facing right now. So it's not really a Doc Rivers issue for me. For me, it's just their lack of it's just the way they play defense now. Their whole identity has changed. The Milwaukee Bucks weren't known as a great offensive unit. Obviously they acquired Dame in the offseason, and that's always going to help. But the reason why they won their championship a couple of years ago was because they had the number one defense in the league. They were able to lock you up because you had Giannis, you had Drew Holiday, you had Brook Lopez. And so you had the pieces to play defense. You had the identity on that side of the ball. And now everything's just flipped for this Milwaukee Bucks team. Offensively, they're one of the best offensive teams, if not the best offensive teams in all of basketball. But defensively, they've taken a huge step back since losing Drew Holiday. Brook Lopez has had his fair share of injuries this year. And really, when you really look at the Milwaukee Bucks struggles since acquiring Doc Rivers as their head coach, since signing Doc Rivers, some of the games Dame has been playing, some of the games he's not been playing, and obviously Chris Middleton, as we've just mentioned, he hasn't been available a lot for this Milwaukee Bucks team, and so health and defense is just really forcing me to lean, towards the direction of them just being complete frauds, and I can't fully trust this team. Their offense is the only thing that'll kind of sway me in the other direction because of how great they've been so far this year. But if the Milwaukee Bucks want to be able to make noise in the postseason, if they want to be able to knock off the Boston Celtics and appear in the NBA Finals, you're gonna have to play some defense. You're gonna have to be able to contain guys like Jason Tatum. You're gonna have to be able to contain guys like Jaylen Brown. And if they just don't necessarily have the personnel, to go out there and guard those two wing guys in a 7-game series, and that's just really the truth of it all. And I don't even have to get into Dame being a playoff dropper or a playoff riser. And then I can really get into a conversation about Giannis, and his play kind of really hurting this team more than it is helping this team, because in the postseason, as we all know, the game slows down, and so you're not necessarily flying up the court up and down. And with Giannis's inability to shoot the ball, you can kind of build a wall to the best of your ability and try to contain this offense as best as you can. And so, with the way the Milwaukee Bucks are looking right now offensively, it could look completely different, come postseason time when the game slows down. And obviously, Dame should be a help for this team in the postseason, but health has been a key issue for this team, and their lack of defensive guys has hurt this team a lot. Because like I said, when you look back at the year they won the championship, offensively, they weren't one of the greatest teams. And if we're being, we could all be honest with each other. If the Brooklyn Nets didn't get hurt and collapse, and with all the injuries, the Milwaukee Bucks would have no championships under their belt right now. And we'd probably be having a conversation about Giannis and whether or not he could lead this team. And so that's just really the truth of it all. They were able to get, slip away with the championship, but for now to get back to that point, they have to have, a defensive identity. But that's what they're lacking right now. So that's really where I'm at with this whole thing. I don't necessarily blame Doc Rivers. I think any coach would have a hard time, trying to figure everything out on the fly, trying to take this team that was a number 2 seed when you got it, and try to get them better, try to, keep them where they were at, in a tough Eastern Conference. With the way the Eastern Conference is set up right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers and New York Knicks, those two teams are always those two teams so far this year have been competing, especially since the start of the new year, with how hot they were in the month of January. It's just tough to compete. It's just tough to sustain that level of play when, you're trying to figure things out and learn a whole new team on the fly. Obviously Doc Rivers was in the ESPN booth, and a couple of weeks later, he's getting called up to be a head coach of this Milwaukee Bucks team that was a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. But, offensively, I was going to be interested to see how this Milwaukee Bucks team looks. Hopefully Chris Middleton can get back for these guys and, stay healthy. Damian Lillard also struggled in the month of January, but now he's starting to pick up his play. In December, he was shooting the ball lights out, closer to 38 to 40% from the 3-point line. But during the month of January is where he really took a hit, and which really hurt the Milwaukee Bucks as a whole. But come postseason time, we could be having a completely different conversation about this team. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. But now we'll go ahead and move on to our last discussion of the night. Biggest surprises and biggest disappointments. We'll go ahead and start off with the biggest surprises so far this season.
I mean, pretty comfortably for me would be OKC. I think I had high hopes for this team, and I'd be lying to you if I said I had them as a top 2 seed all the way past All-Star break. I think just the level of play from this team has just been like astounding. Like, you see the way that obviously Shea's been an MVP candidate, but even guys like Jalen Williams, who's been averaging like 19 on some insane amount of efficiency, been one of the better jump shooters in the entire league. And then you look at Chet Holmgren and the way he's come in. The first 2 months of the season, there was really a debate for Rookie of the Year between the two, between him and Wembanyama. Like, he was playing the lights out. December he had a little stretch where he started to hit the rookie wall, and ever since January, he's been back to doing exactly what he's needed: space the floor, put the ball on the floor against these slower-footed centers and play an amazing amount of defense. And the amount of contributions on this team, I think it's just been a complete shocker of how good this team's been. It's caught me by surprise. I think it's caught a lot of people by surprise, and it's made people take notice of OKC, like announcing themselves like, "Hey, we're here." We're not just a young, fun team just to play and just to be around. They're really legit. So it's been a huge surprise to me.
Yeah, I'll probably agree with that as well. OKC, from the jump they had from last year to now, it's crazy. From being a playing team to having one of the best records in the West. Essentially, it was just the addition of Chet coming to the team, or just coming back from injury. They taking the next step from Shea to Jalen Williams to Chet just coming in and being a defensive force on that defensive side of the ball for them, and even other contributors like Ludor and a couple other guys coming off the bench. So for them, I feel like it's the biggest surprise. I didn't expect them to be number one in the West. I didn't expect them to have this type of record at this point of the season. And I felt like they're doing a lot better than a lot of people expected, and they are. So it's good for them. And to me, biggest surprise. Abdi was very high on them. He's been high on them, and he's seeing the fruit come to life, and they hooping this year. So, yep.
I think for me, my biggest surprise so far this season has been the Cleveland Cavaliers. This one was a toss-up for me between the Knicks and the Cavaliers, but I'm giving the Cavaliers the edge just based on the fact that, during that month of January where they went 11-2, a lot of those games, Donovan Mitchell was going out there fighting on his own with Darius Garland and Evan Mobley being out due to injury. That's kind of where and normally a team would take a step back. They would struggle a little bit when, their key players are out of the rotation. But that it didn't necessarily happen for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Donovan Mitchell's playing at an MVP level. Coming into the season, I didn't expect the Cavaliers to be a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference at this point in the season. But here we are now with a record of 38-19. Donovan Mitchell playing at an MVP level. They were able to get their guys back, and they're able to continue to play the same way they've been playing since the month of January. They've been playing a great basketball all around, and I understand the Oklahoma City Thunder is a huge surprise. The Minnesota Timberwolves, are a huge surprise. The New York Knicks as well. But, the Cleveland Cavaliers absolutely deserve some love. They definitely deserve their flowers, just because of the fact that the way they've been playing and with their guys being out of the rotation, Donovan Mitchell, being an MVP candidate, it's been interesting and it's been crazy because nobody could have predicted this because everybody knows how great Donovan Mitchell is, but nobody really, thought that these guys would be a top 2 team in the Eastern Conference. I understand the gap between them and Boston is about 7.5 games, but at the end of the day, being a top 2 team and with the way their season has gone, it's been nothing but a surprise for me. But aside from biggest surprises, we always have to talk about the biggest disappointment so far this season.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna have to be one of those 2 playing teams. I will say, relative to how good they ended the season last year, for me, it's just the Los Angeles Lakers. I think, you come off a Western Conference Finals, you get out the plane, you beat the Grizzlies first round, you beat the Warriors, and then you have a competitive series with the Nuggets. Of course, it ended up in a sweep, but it was a lot closer than it looks on paper. And then coming into this offseason, you sign guys like Gabe Vincent. You have everybody coming back. You're expecting.
Man, Gabe Vincent played 2 games. That don't count as a signing.
I'm saying relative to what you've already got, and so you come off the Western Conference, you're expecting Austin Reeves to be better this season. You get D'Lo on a pretty cheap contract for the type of player that he is. Of course, Anthony Davis playing at a phenomenal level, and then LeBron James, no mention. And then, I mean, you're sitting in a playing spot. Like, it's just relative disappointment to what your expectations are. I think all of us here were pretty high on the Lakers entering the season. I feel like we all had them at least minimum as a top 4 seed. I think maybe a couple of us probably had them as a top 2, top 3 seed. And so, when you look at them now sitting at a playing spot, I think that's pretty disappointment compared to what we were expecting them to be. Of course, injuries do play a factor, but at the end of the day, when you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and they're both playing at a high level, there's just no way you should be in a playing spot. I just feel like if you have 2 guys playing that good, it shouldn't be a play-in. Like, at least you got to be a top 6 seed. There's no reason why a team like the Kings should be ahead of you when you're playing at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Especially for us, I feel like we're supposed to. I feel like we're supposed to be a little bit higher in the standings. I feel like we gave up some games. I feel like we lost some crucial games. I feel like some games people LeBron, AD, they didn't play too great, or they took a seat back, or they took a foot off the pedal. There was a couple games that we could have won. So I do agree with that. I feel like we should be at least 35, 36 wins. I feel like we should be right behind the Clippers, like at least a game behind them. But I mean, it is what it is. I know playoff time comes. Like I said before, put my trust in LeBron James. So like I said.
For me, the Sacramento Kings have been the biggest disappointment so far this season. especially with how great they were last season, with them having that high-powered offense, the best offense in all of basketball. For them to have a record of 33-24, to be a seventh seed right now in the Western Conference, I'm kind of confused as to where did it all go wrong. I understand that defensively, they weren't the greatest group of guys even last year. It's their offense was the reason why they were so high, a top 3 team in the Western Conference. But now offensively, they've regressed heavily. From going from the best offense in all of basketball from last season, and they had the highest offensive rating in NBA history, to being just a bottom half offensive team. Their offense has regressed. I'm not too sure what's going on right now with the Sacramento Kings. Obviously De'Aaron Fox is still doing his thing, Sabonis is still doing his thing, but they just don't look like that same team they were last year. Where they're high flying, pace was jumping up and down. We had we had the Kings last year, and we have the Indiana Pacers this year, but they're playing to like a little lesser degree. But I'm just confused as to where it's gone wrong.
I
I
just
did mention
weird that they didn't like improve their roster. I feel like that's kind of just the odd thing about that team. Like, you have a great season last year. Obviously first round exit, but for a team that hasn't made the playoffs that long, it was a great feeling and everything. And then you go out and your roster looks basically the same thing as it was last season. I just don't think that's like. I feel like that's just a weird way to go about entering the next season. You should be making some sort of marginal improvements. Instead, they re-signed Harrison Barnes. They didn't really make any moves. They traded away Rashawn Holmes. It was just like nothing. They got Chris Duarte. It was just such an odd off season for them. They didn't really do much. They just came in the same exact team. So,
and that's the point that I was going to get to. I had this team being one of the biggest losers coming out of NBA free agency because of their lack of moves. I talked about how they were so great last year, even with them getting out of the first round to that Warriors team. That was this past offseason was a great opportunity for them to retool this roster, to figure out what they need, to get over the hump. So if they run into a team like the Warriors, if they run into a team like the Denver Nuggets or the Phoenix Suns or the Los Angeles Clippers or the Lakers, they have the pieces necessary to win that series. And this past offseason, they made absolutely no moves that were impactful. And so that's why I labeled them the biggest losers. And now we're a little over halfway through the NBA season, and they're the 7th seed. They've taken a step back from where they were last year. And what I said then is coming to life now. These guys needed to go out and make a move, to help this team. They should have been aggressive at the trade deadline. They missed the opportunity there, where the Pacers took Pascal Siakam from them. The Sacramento Kings should have swung for the fences and made a move for him, to help this team. Obviously De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis are great, but coming out of the last postseason, you understood that you needed just another option, to for those guys. You need another piece. There was a missing piece that needed to be filled to the puzzle, and they just didn't go out and acquire a piece, and
like,
that's why they've been struggling.
even if they didn't even like swing for the fences, like I feel like even if they signed a guy like Dylan Brooks, that would have helped their team because they would have had a guy that would have offered elite defense and give him some level of shooting. That would have helped them be able to guard some of these wings in the West. But instead, they just decided to stay put and just rock with what they have, which it just doesn't make much sense to me.
And that's the thing. Like, I think I wouldn't go as far as to say we all kind of expected a regression from them offensively, but if you weren't going to go out and acquire a guy that was going to help your team offensively, at least acquire some defense. In that Warriors series, it was clear as day that Sabonis was a liability on the defensive end, and when they were playing great defense, it was Alex Len that was being put in the lineup, and he was the guy that was out there on the floor that was causing a little bit of trouble for this Warriors team, along with the perimeter guys like Davion Mitchell and those guys. And you didn't help either side of the ball, and so it's like now you're kind of paying the price for that. And they sit at a playing spot, and I'm not too sure if they're going to be one of the few teams that make it out, because that playing tournament, you have the Dallas Mavericks that are sitting right behind them at the 8th seed, and you also have the Lakers that are probably going to finish probably 9th or 10th, depending on how the Warriors do towards the end of the stretch of the season. So getting out of the playing tournament is not going to be easy, for this Sacramento Kings team, and that's why they're my biggest disappointment so far. Just because they didn't improve on both sides of the ball, offensively or defensively, didn't make a move in free agency and didn't make a move at the NBA trade deadline. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But that'll wrap up our episode for today. Any final words before we sign off?
It's gonna be fun watching this stretch down the line and seeing how seeding ends up, because the playing tournament is just the beginning of the playoffs, man. That's just the teaser to how everything begins. So it's gonna be good to see who finishes there.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait.
A few days ago, I was watching highlights from the Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder matchup from early on in the season. Those two teams match up this Sunday, so that's a matchup that I'm looking forward to watching, because I just want to see how the Oklahoma City Thunder are able to match up with an offensive firepower team like the Phoenix Suns. Even though Bradley Beal might not even play that game, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker going up against SGA and J-Dub, it's going to be interesting to watch. And so, as always, we have a lot more that we're going to get into in this next month and a half leading up to the NBA postseason. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and get to it all. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.